Out to those who were never there for me. When I was struggling, you was never there, homie. My friends in the past never really cared for me. I felt so cold, all alone, doing things on my own. And this was every day, worked all night, so mom wouldn't pay. Crazy bills on the mind made a tough day. Feel even worse, I had nobody to make the feelings reverse. This life I'm living is thirst, and I was the first son in college, working part-time to get my car fixed. It put dents in my pockets. Know what I'm trying to say is, I depended on dudes for mad shit, but they didn't come through for half of it. So the fact is, we all actors in this movie of life.
All right, so welcome back to The Struggling Artist. I'm here with my friend. I mean, I don't even really know where to start. You're kind of a jack of all trades, writer, director.
You know, I don't like the whole jack of all trades. I'm definitely not a jack of all trades. More like a jerk of all trades.
Okay.
But it's interesting. Like, I do writing, directing, producing. I do photography.
Right. Graphic design.
I do editing and cinematography too. And pretty much almost everything is out of necessity. You know, a lot of that came out of necessity because as a struggling artist, you don't have the money to afford to pay for everybody to do all this stuff. So I ended up learning how to do everything because I had to. I had to know how to use a camera because I couldn't afford to go hire a DP.
Right.
I had to learn how to edit because I couldn't pay somebody to edit my movies. So out of necessity, we kind of all become jack of all trades just because of those reasons. Now, I don't do makeup.
Yeah.
Or wardrobe or
I'm kind of learning that right now myself. I mean, like, I can't pay somebody to edit this. Yep. I have to do it myself. So I'm learning editing, you know, and I find I'm getting more efficient every week. The time that it takes for me to edit an episode is less and less and less, but you have to do it out of necessity.
Yeah. And then it ends up helping though in the long run, because now, cut to years later, knowing how to do all these things, all of a sudden, if you have a slow month when you're not acting or you're not, shooting something, and then you go and get a photography client and you go and do a photo shoot for them, or then you get an editing client and you go and do something for them. Yeah. So then all of a sudden your workload starts getting better because you can do all these different things.
Yeah.
But then on the opposite side of that spectrum, you start having issues in the industry because then people start trying to label you things. And especially in Hollywood, like, you're usually labeled, you get like one thing, or two things. So it's like you're an actor, but you also produce, you also edit, you also can write, Right. So then I don't want to be labeled just a graphic designer, or just a photographer, or just this, because you have a goal in mind of where you want to be. And so the necessity ends up hindering you a little bit.
Right. I find like I'm doing these things to help me get to the next thing, or, it's just like, it's out of necessity, really. I mean,
absolutely.
And you have all these tools that are available now that it's a little bit easier than it was.
Oh, it's way easier.
Yeah.
I mean, you look back like when Spielberg and Lucas and everybody came out of UCLA, at that time there was 5 film schools in the country.
Right.
So you only had a very limited amount of people that were allowed to come into the industry then.
Right.
Now you have hundreds of film schools. I mean, Orlando has 5 itself.
Wow.
So you have thousands of kids pouring into the industry every month now coming out of school. And it gets, a lot more oversaturated, and the market gets flooded, and then the quality goes down, and so then the studios are forced to raise their quality, and then everybody's kind of fighting for this low end, middle of the muck ground.
Whenever we're out personally or we're hanging out, like, or I introduce you to anybody that, that may not know you, I always say, like, this is my friend Steven Shea. He's a director. Because I know that's kind of like your end goal. Yeah. Like, that's the end thing. I mean, I think you're always going to be doing photography. You're always. Yep. I could see you coming out with books later on in your career as a photographer.
Yeah, I wrote a book. I forgot. I wrote a book this year.
You did write a book this year. Yeah. I have it. It's Let's see here. Oh, that was the.
It's Film Fest Evil. It's on Amazon. Go pick it up.
Yeah.
I co-wrote it with a friend of mine, Terry Cronin, based off a screenplay we'd written. And again, that's a whole other thing too.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write this?
Around 3 months. Going back and forth, I think around 3 months probably. Yeah. But it was built off a screenplay, so the script was already written, so we kind of turned it into novel form.
I'm a little OCD, so that's why I put it back.
Well,
Also for continuity.
Sure.
I don't want it to be
Just
moving around and floating. It's never good.
But it's interesting. Like I made a new business card when I moved to Hollywood, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to put on it.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to put like I do 800 things because
Yeah.
that just looks silly. So I put filmmaker.
Because it kind of
filmmaker on it.
It just it encompasses all of it.
Because if someone came to me and said, "Hey, I want you to make this movie," I could.
Right.
In house with pretty much everything that I have, I could make a movie. So I felt like that was a good, solid title.
I like it. But we go back.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
All the way back to Orlando.
2009.
Yes.
Big year.
Well, I mean, I think before that, I had reached out to you on MySpace. And it was like,
That's true.
I was just starting acting. I was doing the Full Sail thing, which is a school in Orlando.
Yep.
Which you also worked at.
I did. don't like to advertise that too much, but that is true.
All right, so Full Sail gets a little plug. But anyway, I reached out to you on MySpace.
Right.
Your packaging was always awesome to me. Like your posters and your design and your movies.
Thank you.
They were always all over the place in Florida. I was like, man, I want to work with this guy. And then somebody posted something on, I don't remember who it was. Something, we need an actor. We just lost it. We need like 2 days before, and it was for 2/22.
Yep. It's a crazy story because we were trying to find an actor that was willing to do a love scene with a woman.
Right.
And we went through like we had like a dozen people turn us down to do this. And
no guys wanted to get.
Nobody would be willing to do that. And it wasn't like it's like a, I mean, it's a very graceful love scene, you know. It's
sure.
Pretty graceful, I guess.
I mean, it's
uncomfortable. Mildly graceful.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like we need full frontal
right
nudity or whatever.
Penetration or anything like that.
No, Jesus.
Yeah.
So and then you reached out to, and I knew you in the back of my mind because I was a talent agent for 3 years in Orlando, and so like I feel like I knew every actor.
Right.
But we represented like 5,000 people.
Really.
In the state, and oh yeah.
That's a huge roster.
So you wouldn't remember everyone,
Right.
So we would remember. You'd have like your top tier talent. I say top tier, but you'd have your top batch that booked a lot,
right?
And that the casting directors always wanted to go out, and
right.
the clients were looking for. And then people kind of start filtering down. Then you have your ones where you're like your 87-year-old Asian grandmothers.
Sure.
That
very specific.
We're very specific, but we had this really hard time. Then you came along and saved the day, like completely saved us. In the final hour.
I don't know if I was saving the day. I right place at the right time, I think.
Well, it ended up working out great for everybody.
I remember one of the concerns was, well, how tall are you?
We had, and that happens with every actor.
Sure, yeah,
It's like, because we had a very tall lead female.
Right.
And so we needed to have someone that could fit, but we made it work.
Yeah.
It looks fine on camera. I mean, Tom Cruise does it all the time.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, here's his Apple box.
Right.
But, that short ended up kind of catapulting a lot.
Sure, that kind of was like that really kind of, it was everywhere. It was all over.
I mean, everyone makes a short film hoping that it's like successful and it does really, really well, but most of the time it's just kind of like, here's our short, and your friends and family like, yay, good job. And you show it at a few festivals, and it's like, okay, great. But then you make a short and all of a sudden people notice. And that was the short for us. That was like the calling card. And then it kind of blew up, and we premiered at Stygius to a 1,500 seat sold out crowd in Spain, which I couldn't afford to go.
Right.
Because we had made this little like nickel and dime short that we all bound together to do as friends for fun. And it just kind of exploded. And then we played, I think, 26 festivals here and internationally. And we premiered here the U.S. premiere was here in L.A. at the Chinese Theater, which is the first time I ever been to L.A. I came out for the premiere here, and that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Like really exciting, because it's like the most famous theater in the country.
Yeah.
You play your short in it and stuff, and came and did the whole red carpet.
What festival is
it's
that?
It's Scream Fest.
Scream Fest, that's right. Yeah.
Which is like the biggest horror film festival in the States.
I've attended, not with, obviously I couldn't make it. I was still in Florida.
Sure.
When you guys came out, but like a couple of years later, after I moved out here, I went. And it's a pretty big festival, dude.
Oh yeah, it's very legit. It's a very legit festival.
So you're from Florida. Obviously, we've established that. Where specifically in Florida did you grow up?
So I was born on a bayou in New Iberia, Louisiana.
Oh, okay.
But moved to Florida when I was like 4, I think.
Right.
And grew up in the Florida Keys. So I grew up on an island from like 4 to 18. Which is interesting,
right?
So it makes you forcibly very laid back and mostly calm. But
And film was always something that you wanted to do? Was it a young
No, I
passion,
mean, when I was a kid, everyone told me I was going to be an engineer because I played with Legos. So they're like, "Oh, well, you're going to be an engineer because you play with Legos all the time." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." I didn't know what an engineer was.
Right.
You know, but then when I got into high school, everybody was getting into computers because computers were kind of starting to explode. And I had a bunch of friends that all wanted to get into computers and stuff. And so I went to MIT for a semester, like a summer semester, to do computer programming, computer engineering. And I hated it. Like, I totally hated it and did not connect with it. And I was just like, this is not what I wanted. And they were coding video games and stuff, which I thought sounded really cool. But I was just like, this isn't the creative outlet that I want.
More hands-on.
And at that time, this is in the late 90s, you know, DVDs were starting to come out. And DVDs had these things on them called special features. And you could watch behind the scenes of all this stuff. And up until that point, you could only see behind the scenes on like an HBO special, or Entertainment Tonight would show little clips of things, but you didn't know about all that stuff. So to me, I was kind of like, oh, this is cool. You know, when you start seeing those kind of things. And then I kind of realized that I wanted to get into movies. And so at 16, I told my parents, like, I want to try to do movie stuff, because you could see all these people doing movie stuff. And I'd always loved movies, you know, but never realized that there was actually people that made movies. You know, it's kind of a crazy thing. So I looked at, I was growing up in the Keys. So Keys is 180 miles of islands, all interconnected with one road. So like, what kind of opportunities do you have in the Keys?
Right.
So I looked around to see what I could do. So I got a job at my local video store and started working at Blockbuster Video, you know, RIP. And then I contacted my local TV. We had a cable access station. And so I went and I was like, hey, look, I'm this 16-year-old kid. I want to get involved. What can I do? And they were like, oh, we'll let you work here. We'll let you intern here. And they gave me free cable, which was awesome, because my parents were like, oh, HBO and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we got free cable, and I went and worked at this TV station a few nights a week doing floor managing. And so I would run 3 live cameras at once by myself for live television.
Kind of like what you're doing right now.
Yeah, kind of. I'm terrified of all these cameras. But I would run back and forth between the cameras, and I had a headset and be like, oh, turn camera A to this. And I'd run over here, and then I'd run over here, and I'd do that. And so I started doing that for a few years. And then I also went to the Film Commission and offered my services at the Film Commission. And they said,
this is the Florida Film Commission.
The Florida Keys Film Commission. Yeah, for just the Keys. And so the first movie that I got to go and be on was True Lies.
No way.
With Jim Cameron.
Yeah.
And so as a kid, being like 16 and going and standing on the 7 Mile Bridge watching the Harrier jets land and Arnold Schwarzenegger's running around, I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. I could see doing this for a while.
Right.
And just completely fell in love, and then had just been completely immersed myself since. So it's coming up. I realize, like, it's coming up next year will be the 20th year that I've technically started working in the industry, which is cool and depressing at the same time, because it's like, after investing 20 years of time, like, how far are you up the ladder?
Sure.
I'm definitely further up than some people, but I'm definitely not nearly as far as I want to be, of course.
Right. All right, so you decide to go to Florida, to Orlando at that point, after high school or after interning at the radio station?
So when I was a kid, we would always go to Orlando for vacations, because you had Disney World and you had Universal Studios. And going to Universal Studios blew my mind, because it's like, we get to ride the movies. Like, what do you mean? You get to go ride in Back to the Future. You get to go do all these things. So when it came time to go to college, I want to go to Orlando, because Orlando to me was like, that's the capital of the world, was Orlando, where all this cool stuff happened. And so I went up there, got into UCF, University of Central Florida. And at that time, the Blair Witch Project had just come out. And that's where Blair Witch came out of, was Orlando. So in that hot spot, again, all the spotlights were on Orlando at that moment for film schools. And I was a big horror kid. Like, I was always into horror movies, you know, growing up. So I'd watch Freddy and Jason, 80s slashers, and that kind of stuff. Like, we would always sneak over to my great-grandma's house, because she had HBO, like, when I was younger, and watch Tales from the Crypt. Like,
we have a shared affinity for Monster Squad.
Oh, Monster Squad, of course, yeah.
That was the jam for me.
Absolutely.
Like, I've watched it all the time on HBO.
Well, it's like you watch Goonies, and Goonies is such an amazing classic, and then all of a sudden you realize there's a Goonies with monsters.
Yeah.
It's like, what? This is crazy.
Yeah.
No, I love Monster Squad.
Yeah. So you're in Florida.
Side note, after this, let me tell you a Monster Squad thing that's happening coming up that I just got signed onto.
Please.
So I moved out of the Keys to Orlando, and the very first thing I bought when I moved to Orlando was an annual pass for Universal Studios. And I would just go to Jurassic Park and eat hot dogs like every week, just like living in the movies. It was so bizarre. Yeah. It was amazing. I went to Orlando to get into the film school, and so I went to UCF for 2 years and applied with all of my friends to try to get into film school and got denied. All of my friends got in, but me.
UCF.
At UCF.
Wow.
So I kind of teed off a little bit, and so I left. I left UCF, and I went to Valencia, which is a nearby college. At the time was a community college.
Right.
Now it's a full college.
Yeah.
And just finished up an AA degree. I was just like, I'm getting out. Like, forget it then. This is.
But I mean, even if you're going to, I know this because I grew up in Florida. Even if you are going to Valencia and UCF is just down the street, a lot of those teachers are going over from UCF and just teaching the same class at a cheaper price. So you're still getting the same education as all those guys that are going to UCF, but it's the same instructors, right?
Well, I didn't end up even going to the Valencia Film School.
Okay.
I literally just went there for 1 semester to finish up my AA degree, get a degree, and leave. And what I did was, all my friends started film school the following year.
Yeah.
And I went out and spent the rest of my college fund to make my first feature film.
Oh, nice. Which was what?
Which was The Night Owl.
Okay.
So we did that in 2002. And then I graduated from Valencia after a semester. And Valencia got me a job at Nickelodeon Studios. Got me an internship there. So then I started doing assistant camera at Nickelodeon Studios, which I still, all the connections I made from that, I still use to this day.
Out here.
And half of them are in LA now. Yeah. So I still use that. That's how I know Constantine.
Yeah.
We worked together at Nickelodeon.
Constantine's great.
And Chris McDaniel and all those guys are from Nickelodeon days. But I went and made my first feature film. I got a camera and I got my friends and we went into the woods and we hired local actors and we made a feature. And what was crazy about it was, I grew up in a video store,
right?
Working at the video store for years. And so when it came time to get the movie out, I was kind of like, okay, I went to the video store and I looked on the back of the boxes to see who was releasing these movies. And I looked at all the low budget horror movies and I was kind of like, okay, this company's releasing low budget horror.
Right.
I'm going to call them. So I called them and said, hey, I've got this movie. Do you want to distribute it? And they were like, yes, let us send you money.
It was really that easy.
It was that. And so what happened was the movie ends up coming out. It's in like Best Buy. It's online. It's like different places. This is before streaming.
Right.
Right. So, but it was in stores. So I called my parents. I was like, oh, our movie came out this week. And I remember my dad being like, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, no, go to Best Buy. It's there. And he calls me 2 hours later. You're not going to believe this. Your movie's in Best Buy. It was like this defining moment.
Right.
So I remember all these adults in Orlando, like, cause I was like a 23-year-old kid.
Sure.
All these adults were like, how did you do that? Like, we don't understand. They got really mad about it. They had like a big screening of it downtown. All these people came out and they were all like so confused. Like, how did you do this? And I'm like, I literally just I went to the store and I looked at who was selling the movies and I called them and they said yes. And we made all our money back on it. We didn't make like $1 billion.
Sure.
We didn't make,
but you're in the green.
But we're in the green because we didn't spend any money.
Let me ask you, like you mentioned your dad. Was he a big role in you just going to college and getting your AA degree? Like, you did that just for your parents, or did you do that? Like, it sounded like you didn't even want to go to college, right? I mean, like you were just like, all right, let me just do this for my parents. What was that about? No,
I wanted to go to college because I feel like I was a smart kid.
Yeah, obviously you went to MIT.
I went there, there for a little bit, but I wanted to go to college because every kid after high school goes to college. Like nowadays, it's different. Like now as a parent, I wouldn't necessarily force my kid to go to college if there's not a reason for him to go or a thing that he needs to learn. Because I feel like college nowadays is a totally different animal because of the internet. I mean, the internet now teaches everybody so much already. And that's why you have all these kids that are apathetic, like so apathetic now, these millennials coming up because they're overeducated.
Sure,
I think they're overeducated because the problem is now is they don't have to learn anything. If they need to know something, they pull out their cell phones, they Google it, and they know it in 5 seconds.
Right.
So
they're
it's
just taking in all this information all day.
So they can be apathetic because they don't need to go learn it.
I'm a millennial.
Yeah, it's all your fault. But I mean, it's interesting now how the world works. But at the time, I wanted to go to college. Like that was the thing you did, and I had a college fund saved up and everything, and so it wasn't like I needed. Like I ended up getting a scholarship from the state as well.
Yeah.
To go, but it didn't fit with the plan. I mean, I always had a passion. Like I found my passion early, which I was very happy about because a lot of people don't. They kind of figure out later on or halfway through their life like what they want to do. But I figured it out early, so I was like, here's my laser set on this.
Tunnel vision, yeah.
And then haven't really looked back.
You mentioned growing up watching horror, but as filmmakers, who are some of the filmmakers that you admire? Like where are some of your inspirations as a filmmaker?
I was really into like Stanley Kubrick and Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Of course, growing up, I was really into Wes Craven. I liked a lot of Wes Craven styles and John Carpenter. But nowadays, now that I've matured slightly, slightly matured.
Yeah.
I still feel like I'm a 15-year-old like most of the time. I still have the same mentality that I had when I was.
I mean, I follow you on social media, and you're constantly posting pictures with your son, and because you still are so youthful, I feel like your kid's growing up and experiencing a lot of really cool stuff.
He's awesome. I mean, we're like a mirror image of each other, which
Right.
I feel so bad for my poor wife to have to deal with, but we are like the same person. And so him and I, which is good and bad at times,
Like,
you know,
you're
of course.
like, I'm gonna buy you this toy, but really,
you need this Ghostbuster Lego firehouse, son.
Yeah.
This is for you. You've never seen Ghostbusters.
and you walk into your office, and it's in your office.
Oh yeah, well, we have Daddy's Legos and we have Victor's Legos, you know, and so we have it there. There's a line there.
Right.
But it's having a child is a whole new amazing adventure.
Yeah.
And definitely keeps things youthful, which is great. You know,
Yeah.
it just keeps that excitement going. But
Wes Craven.
But as I get older, like I start appreciating more commercial artists too. You know, like I love Michael Bay.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with Michael Bay, and it's interesting because I always get in this Michael Bay argument with people where they're like, "Well, Michael Bay's not a good filmmaker," and I'm like, "Dude, if your movie made over $1 billion every time, you can do whatever you want. You can't tell me that he's not a good filmmaker when every single person on the planet goes to see his movies.
Right.
Like, obviously, he's doing something right.
Yeah.
Now, you may not like the movie, and that's fine. There's a million movies I don't like that other people like, and so you're kind of like, okay, but you can't necessarily fault somebody for that.
Would you consider Michael Bay an artist?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I look at his movies this way. I mean, look at the Transformers franchise. The sequences they shoot in that, and they shoot for months,
right,
to get, they shoot an entire day to get a single shot. You know, the sequences they do, it's incredible the cognitive capacity you would have to pull off those scenes.
Yeah.
Like, his team and his crews are huge, and he has to employ a lot of different people to make things happen. But you watch the behind the scenes of those movies. Like, I remember watching the behind the scenes of Transformers 3.
Yeah.
And they destroy Chicago. And a lot of it was physical effects, practical effects.
Right.
And so I remember there's a scene where Michael Bay is walking on set for the first time, and there's a train through a building. And he's like, "Oh my God, like what is this?" And she's like, "Well, you said you wanted a train." And he's like, "You literally put a train in a building. Like, that is insane. That is completely insane."
So he wasn't aware that they were doing this on set for him?
Well, I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's like, I want you to go crazy and do this, and they do.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh my gosh, like you pulled it off. Like, that's amazing." So it's he's definitely an artist, and if he wasn't an artist, his movies wouldn't work, and they wouldn't make money, So there's definitely art there. I mean, there's a story, there's actors, everything about his movies usually is fantastic, except people have problems with the story, with the scripts, is most people's problem. But you can't watch a Transformers movie and be like, "Oh, those effects look terrible." It's like, because they don't. They're the best effects.
Yeah, they're amazing.
And they spend their money where it's due, and so those movies make so much money. I mean, you look at an interesting element like the Fast and the Furious 8 just had the biggest opening of all time. The Fast and the Furious 8.
I know,
and so it's like, is that now, should you deter that movie because of its success? Like, is it bad because it's successful? It's frustrating to younger, smaller filmmakers because they're like, "I want to make a movie." Everyone wants to make a movie that's makes $1 billion. Everyone. Like, why would you not want to do that? "Oh, I'm an artist." It's like, okay, well, you're an artist, but if someone gave you $1 billion and your movie was that successful to where every person in the world wanted to see it, would you not be proud of that?
Right.
Of course you would.
No, you're right.
And as an actor, wouldn't you love to be in a movie that's...
Sign me up, put me in, coach.
Absolutely.
Aside from being passionate, what is the real driving force to why you do this? Why you're a filmmaker? Why you create movies?
I think that a lot of creatives have something in them that like needs to be released. Like, you have this creature that's living on the back of your spinal cord that is just like tapping you on the back, being like, "Hey, hey, 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 hey," and you kind of feel this. It's this itch, and it's this unseen force that drives you to do something. And not everyone has that. Most people don't have it. Some people are passionate, and some people aren't. That's why we have creatives versus non-creatives. Left brain, right brain, and
Sure.
everything. So I don't know why I was gifted with this creature.
And you definitely consider it a gift. You don't think it's like...
I think it's a gift. Some people think it's a curse, I'm sure. And some people, the sad thing is when you see friends that are creative, that are incredibly talented, give up And I've had band friends. Like I've had friends that are in bands, and they will try for like 20 years to make their band, or 10 years. It'll be like a 10-year, and they'll put everything, blood, sweat, and tears, and everything. And then one day they're like, well, I guess I just got to grow up. And I'm just like, I don't understand that. Like that is such a strange concept to me. Like I couldn't imagine giving up and just being like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have spent 20 years doing this. I should have done something else.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I should go back and open that flower shop that my grandma told me I should always do. Like I don't feel that way. And I feel like to give up, you would have to have a really good reason. Like some people will be like, oh, like your mother gets sick and you have to go home and kind of put your career on pause or put things on pause to go help out with that. Or
right.
Like there's definitely situations that can arise that force people out of the industry and force people into doing things that are unseen. Or maybe you get diagnosed with cancer and then all of a sudden your 20-year plan becomes a 3-year plan.
And now you just want to live life.
Right. And you see things like that. You know, my dad died of cancer at 56 and they gave him 8 months to live when he got diagnosed. And then he lasted 7 years.
Right.
And so I remember seeing that and just being like, you know, it really lit a fire under me to be like, we don't have very much time to make this happen. And a lot of people think that life is short. A lot of people think life is long. But
what did he do? What were those last 8 months for him? Like,
he lived.
Was it very painful? Or like, where he was like, I'm going to go here. What did he do? Anything?
He did everything he wanted. Like he could do whatever he wanted. It's interesting when all of a sudden someone's basically like, okay, you know, if someone tells you you've got a year to live, what are you going to do? Are you going to go sit in your room and be like, well, what's the point? And then just depress yourself to death? Like, or are you going to be like, oh my gosh, I only have 360 days to do whatever I can. What am I going to do? I'm going to go visit this place. I'm going to go travel to here. So like he definitely tried to live it up as much as he could. He completely changed his lifestyle. He was a judge and a lawyer and ended up, you know, getting involved with a farm and started farming. And then, you know, met an amazing woman, you know, who he married during that time period. Like even knowing that that was going to happen.
Wow.
But they were just very happy. She was widowed prior. And so they were very happy just to be together.
Yeah.
And then, you know, knew eventually something was going to happen. And he traveled a lot and went to places he always wanted to go. And while he could, you know, and then eventually his health got deteriorated enough to where he couldn't, you know. Yeah. But I remember... So crazy story, we were talking about the 222 premiere. Yeah. I went and saw my father I spent a week with him in Louisiana. Me and my sisters each went out for a week and spent a week with him kind of toward the end in Louisiana. And I spent a week with him there and then flew straight to LA to come to the premiere. And we premiered 222, walked the red carpet at the Hollywood Chinese Theater, you know, in LA and all this stuff, did this whole big glitzy party. And the next morning, I put my wife and friends back on a plane to Florida, and I was staying out for a week because I was getting calls for meetings from studios and managers and stuff. And I got a call that morning, an hour after I put my wife on the plane, being like, hey, he's not going to last the day. You need to come back. And it went from the highest moment of my life to the lowest moment in an instant. And I remember sitting there at Hollywood and Highland, just staring at the Hollywood sign, just bawling my eyes out, being like the most bizarre instant. And so I canceled every meeting, canceled everything, got on a plane, flew back to Louisiana, and then like a couple days later he passed. And so it's a very interesting thing. But like being there and getting just that opportunity, and that's all Hollywood is to me. It's like it's an opportunity. Like every corner here is a new opportunity. And I've been out here for a little over a year now from Florida, and it's amazing. I mean, I love it here. I love LA. I love Hollywood and I feel that, every single corner is a new possibility. Sure. Every new person you meet
is a new opportunity. Yeah.
And I see a lot of people come out here, and I had friends be like, well, how long are you going to give yourself till you give up? And I'm like, I don't understand what that means. Like, why would you do anything planning on quitting?
Right.
You know, it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like there's ways to get work, and there's ways to make money, and there's ways to make things possible. Like that's every struggling artist. It's like you're struggling because you're not at the point in your life that you want to be. And so you're struggling to get there. And I mean, no one's really ever at the point I think in their life that they want to be. No, you think you want to be at this level. And then once you get there, you're like, well, I only have one solid gold helicopter. I kind of want 3,
right?
You know? And then you kind of you're always chasing that dream, but your dream changes constantly. You know, like your dream right now might be, I want to act on a major TV show. And then you accomplish that. And you're like, oh man, I did it. And you feel great. And then you start getting,
well, because there's so many different components to filmmaking in the entertainment industry that you're like, okay, I've done this. No, maybe I'll I'll take a stab at doing this. I haven't done that. You know, you want to shake it up and grow. I think essentially is what we're trying to do, or you know, as human beings, you just want to grow and experience new things. So like once you've done something, you accomplish something, then you're like, if you're really an artist at heart, you're like, well, what am I going to do now?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, you ask like why I do this, and I love to have fun.
Yeah.
Like I love to be entertained. Yeah. Like I love to go to movies and be like, oh, yeah, oh my gosh, no, don't do that. Like I love the roller coaster. I love roller coasters. Real roller coasters too. I love going on roller coasters. Yeah. So it's like I love those experiences. Because what's the opposite of that? The opposite of that is reality. And reality is, for a normal person, is you go to a 9-to-5 job that you're stuck in, or you're satisfied with. Like because you need to support your family. And you need to do this. You need to support yourself.
Which I think is honorable.
Which is fine.
Yeah, yeah.
But if I have a choice not to have to do that, then I'm going to. And I love entertaining people. Like I love giving other people those abilities to experience those things.
So I like to ask everybody this question that comes on the show. What is one thing you have to do every day to feed your artist?
You know, it'd be great if every single day we could create, you know, and we could make things happen, but that doesn't happen most of the time. So one of the things that I do a lot is music. Like I love listening to music.
Okay.
So I have like my Awesome Mix playlist that has all the songs that inspire me, and which constantly changes. You know, new songs constantly come out, and you discover old songs you'd forgotten about. And so I have a playlist that I'll listen to when I'm doing different things. I have a bunch of different playlists depending on what mood I'm in.
Sure.
Or depending on what I'm doing. Like if I'm writing a script, I'll listen to movie scores. Depending on the kind of script I write, I'll have a action, you know, score list. I'll have a suspense score list. I'll have a comedy score list. And so I try to find music that kind of represents what I'm doing in that moment. Yeah. So like even coming here, I was listening to a playlist in the car that was just kind of like driving strength, powerful tracks,
inspirational stuff,
to just get you like really pumped up about doing things. But
I can feel it, man. It's great.
You know, I have a bad day playlist too, where it's like you're feeling just really lame. You're feeling down the dumps, and it's kind of like, all right, well, I'm gonna.
But you acknowledge it, and you're like, look, today's a shitty day. You have shitty days.
Yep.
This is what it is. I'm here right now. Like you don't try to run from it. It sounds like you totally
it's there. So you know, what are you gonna do?
Right. And saying that, and you're saying while you're working, what percentage of time do you spend behind the computer as opposed to like physically being on sets or shooting? You know, because you have your production company, Abyssmal Entertainment, but like I feel like it's just, I don't know, it's kind of interesting to me. Like everybody sees the stuff you put out,
right?
But like how much of your time is behind the computer?
Most of my time is behind the computer, like most of it. And it's interesting, like even if I don't have projects I'm necessarily writing or editing or doing, I'll be researching. I spend so much of my day just researching, you know, connecting the dots, like seeing who's connected to what. Right. You know, trying to figure out, okay, what exactly, like I've got a dozen projects right now that are packaged that we're shopping around different places. So I'm kind of like, okay, today I'm going to focus on this project. Like what studio might be more interested in this? And so I try to figure out kind of connections that I may have to be able to get in there, to get to this person or get there. Yeah. And so a lot of time is spent just kind of researching and seeing what connections I can put together.
To go along with that, what advice would you give to somebody that's starting out as a young filmmaker that, you know, wants to get their work out there?
Quit. I've got enough competition. For starting filmmakers, I mean, the thing is it's frustrating to see a lot of first-time filmmakers now, especially the millennials coming up, because they are so entitled. They feel they're like, oh, I'm 22, so I deserve that $20 million, $100 million movie because I went to film school. Right. And it's like, film school is great if you don't know how to make films. You know, go to film school and learn how to make movies and then make movies. But if you don't do that, like I never went to film school. Right. So to me, it's like I didn't necessarily need it. I just went out and did it. I just got a camera. In fact, what I did in college was I was like, okay, I know that I need to make a feature, that a feature is going to be what sticks and what makes money and what catapults you to the next level.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel comfortable going into making a feature yet. Not many do, because a feature is this huge, undaunting task.
Yeah.
So then I realized, I was like, all a feature is a really long short. And if I can make a short film, then I can make a feature.
Right.
And it's true. Like, all it is a longer short. So you have so many people that go out and make short films or music videos or whatever with their friends and don't think they can pull off a feature. But that's total crap, because of course you can. It's just a longer short film. That's it, with a bigger story. So what I did is I did 6 short films in a year. I decided, I'm going to write, direct, produce 6 short films in a year. And then after those 6 shorts, I'll feel comfortable enough into going into feature territory. And that's what I did. And so I started doing features. And then, you do shorts in the meantime, in between. Like, I do a lot of music videos. I'm directing my 20th music video this week, which I think is pretty crazy.
That's awesome. Man.
And I love doing music videos too, because it's a nice creative outlet.
Yeah. And
there's no audio, so there's less stress to deal with. You don't have to deal with continuity. You can make it as weird as you want or do whatever you want. It's a completely clean palette.
Right.
And then I do photography as well. And photography is the same thing. It's like I think as a struggling artist, you have to find ways to make it work. Every struggling artist has to make it work somehow. Right. You have to make money. I mean, and money is the necessary evil of everything. It's like, even though a lot of people don't care about money, or say they don't care about money, you have to have money. You have to have money to eat.
Do you need money to create, though?
Yes, you need money for everything. That's the bottom line.
Yeah,
because
you're right.
If you didn't have money, you would starve to death,
right.
and you would die, and then you can't create if you're dead.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
So you technically have to have money for everything. As much as people don't like to admit it, which again is leading me to being more of a commercial filmmaker at this point, to where I'm like, if the more money that I have, the more money that I make, the more that I can do with things. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 just came out and is making a fortune. James Gunn can do whatever he wants. Like, James Cameron can do whatever he wants.
Doesn't have to worry about money.
No.
What do you do to embrace the struggle? Like, if you're having a tough day, or if things seem really like the hills seeming really steep? What's your perspective on it?
A lot of times if I get like really low, like really down in the dumps, or feel like things aren't happening, I'll watch a movie that inspires me.
Takes you right out of it?
And then all of a sudden you're kind of like, that's it. There it is. Like, that's what I want. I want to create that. And then all of a sudden you become inspired. Usually, like, you'll get inspired again. I do that a lot of times when people die. I'll go and watch a movie that's emotionally impactful for me, because that's my life. My life is the movie. It's like, I love escape. I love escaping reality. I love doing fantastical things. And that's all movies are, is an escape. So once reality gets too real, you leave.
Yeah.
And you check out and you go somewhere else, which is another reason why I don't like dramas. I'm not into dramas. I'm not into dramatic stuff. I'm not into reality TV.
Right.
I'm just like, well, that doesn't, like, I'm already living reality. Like, I don't need that stuff. I don't want to feel sad when I go to movies. I don't want to feel depressed. It's like, I struggle enough. Why do I want to see other people's struggles? I can watch the news if I want to feel bad about myself. Jesus.
And there's a lot of that right now.
Yeah. So it's like, if you want to get terrified or scared or anything, watch the news, and you're just kind of like, oh, this is the world we actually live in. I don't know if I want to be in that world all the time. I don't. And that's the reason why I make movies, is so I can escape that world, and I can let other people escape that world too. And it's interesting, like with horror movies, people are like, why would you want to make horror movies just about people getting killed and stuff? It's like, no, it's not about people getting killed. It's about surviving. It's about being brought to that brink of death and being pulled back at the last possible second before you fall over that cliff. And death is a very terrifying thing to me. I mean, that's it. That's game over, man.
Sure.
It's like death is it.
Right.
So it's like, you don't get a second chance. You don't get extra lives. It's not a video game. So what I love about horror is it's like, you get to bring people to those moments, but bring them back and make them appreciate the life that they do have. Because they could be one of those victims on the screen. They could have that happen to them. But luckily, they don't. And so it's like, you come out of a horror like, oh, we survived. Like, we just all survived together.
Right.
And now get to work. It's like, you still have that life. Like, take advantage of that.
In 10 years, what do you want your body of work? Well, let me say that. In 20 years. Because you've already been doing this for 20 years. So let's just put another 20 on it. In 20 years, what would you like your collective body of work to say about you?
That I'm awesome. Probably.
Just awesome. Like, yeah.
I mean, I love making things that people enjoy.
Yeah.
That people can have fun doing.
Yeah.
You know, that people... my ultimate goal is to make movies that take you on a great ride that you want to repeat. You want to get back on that roller coaster again.
Yeah.
You want to keep going. There's things in there that are, you know, you have emotional struggles and you have drama, but it's like I love stuff that's fun. You know, I love horror and action and comedy and whatnot. And so it's like I would like my body of work to be like, wow, this guy makes a lot of really fun projects.
This guy kept on taking me on a ride.
Yeah. To where it's like you go back and watch a movie and you're just like, oh yeah, I remember. Let's watch that again. Oh, that was a blast. That was a blast. Like that would be the best compliment I could ever get. Is that's a blast.
And then on top of that, like you've been since coming up on 20 years, you've been doing this. What has the entertainment industry taught you on just a human level as a human being?
I think the entertainment industry has taught me that literally anything is possible. Except for cloning dinosaurs. I don't know if that's possible just yet.
Right.
But it's interesting, just the opportunities that you get being in the industry. And everything seems impossible, but literally all it is one person making a phone call could change your entire life at any moment. And it's like playing the lottery. You see people that go and play the lottery every single week.
Yeah.
Play. And you're like, those people are crazy. That's insane. What are they going to do? You know, and then one day one of the people is going to win, you know, $100 million. And it happens every week. You know, somebody wins something every week. And so everything is possible. Like anything is possible. The longer you're in it, the more chance you're going to have. The more, you know, hands you play, the better chance it is to win. So when you see people quit and give up, they're never going to win. They're guaranteed out.
Right.
Like they pull out. So eventually, you know, all of these guys running these studios are going to die off.
Right.
All of these directors that we love and cherish are going to die off. And those holes keep opening. And so more opportunities keep rising the longer you're in it. So, I mean, I definitely see it as a lifelong pursuit. And at some point, you're going to hit it because, you know, you play that jackpot 500,000 times. Eventually, one of them is going to win.
Are you you're on social media?
What's that?
Right? You're on everything, right? I mean, like...
Yes. Oh, yeah.
What is it?
I'm on... Oh yeah, I'm on the Facebooks and the Tweeters and whatnot.
Okay, what is your handle?
Oh gosh, well it's all over the place. The best place to find everything is stevenshea.com.
Okay.
And that has links to like all
your social media,
Instagrams and.
Do you think social media is important?
I am on social media way too many hours a day. I think that it has become very important. I mean, I have executives that I go to now that are like, you know, you go to cast a movie and they're like, well, how many followers does that person have? Like how many subscribers? And that has become valuable to certain people in certain instances. But I think that social media has now become this free marketing platform, which everyone jumps on board of.
Sure.
Because it's technically free.
Right.
Because marketing is the #1 way of getting anybody to see anything that you do. So now instead of going and dropping 30 million in P&A, you are dropping 30 hours into publicizing your Twitter, or putting your Instagram posts. Like on my Abyssmal Entertainment Instagram, I have a predestined release every single day of content. So every single day something rolls out. You know, a photo or a picture or something every single day. So every day we have at least one piece of content coming out. And that's how you see the YouTubers that are making 6 figures a year, you know, talking to their laptops and whatnot, you know, which is a little discouraging for sure because you're not in that boat. I mean, anytime you see anybody doing something easier and doing it better than you, it's frustrating, you know. Watch a rap music video.
Right. So, I mean, do you think, is it specifically as a filmmaker, does it matter to get your content made? Or are you just like, well, I'll just put talent that does have a following?
Well, my thinking has always been throw as much shit against the wall as you possibly can and hope that something sticks.
Right.
So if I go out with a dozen projects as opposed to going out with one, am I going to have better chances?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So with social media, it's like the more people that see you and know you exist, the better chances you're going to have. Absolutely. Every time. So there's some people that write it off, and then it's kind of like, okay, well then your job becomes twice as hard because now you physically have to go and make every single person aware that you exist. I mean, the first month that I moved out here, I did a bunch of research and came up with like 250 independent producers that produce projects that are similar to the projects that I want to do on a lower budget level. And I reached out to 250 of them through social media.
Yeah.
And I got maybe 10% responding.
Which is not bad.
And then I got to pitch to 5% of those. So all of a sudden I got these open door pitches just because I reached out through social media. Yep. Whereas if I would have just sat back and been like, well, I can't do anything because I don't have an agent, then I wouldn't have gotten any kind of pitches. And now all of a sudden I opened up a dozen new doors that I can return to in the future with new projects and things like that. So I definitely think social media is incredibly helpful. And another reason why it's incredibly helpful is because it builds personal relationships. They always tell you that you shouldn't do business with your friends. That's bullshit. Like, why would you not want to work with your friends? Like, I love my friends. I would much rather go out and hang out with my friends and do cool stuff than hang out with a bunch of strangers that I hope
like you
will give me
or you get along with. Yeah.
So it's like, I think building those social, personal relationships is imperative, because now it's like, I mean, I get so much work off social media because all of a sudden I pop up in someone's news feed and they're looking for someone to do something that day. And they're like, oh yeah, I forgot about him, blah, blah, blah. And then they reach out. Or you'll get all these groups on Facebook to find work.
I mean, like, just, I got in 222 because of social media.
Because of social media. Absolutely. And it is a platform. And there's some people that do like the YouTubing and everything where they push it out there and they have millions of followers, and that's amazing. And I'm totally not in that world at all.
Right.
And I'm not even really that interested in being in that world. I feel too, like, I'm past my prime with that. It's like the kids that got into that early are blowing up.
Right.
And it's going to take a long time for new people to get in there. I have a friend that makes his full living from YouTube. And it took him about 3.5 years of working every day. And once he realized that he had to put a video out a day, that's when he started like doing really well. And so he posts a video a day and a main channel video a week. And so he's just constantly creating content nonstop. And that's how he can make his living. But it is a full-time job.
I mean, it all is.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But what's great about it is that even though it's a full-time job, it's awesome.
It's a good job.
You know, you get to travel. They let us play with explosives. This is an amazing industry, you know?
Yeah. Well, hey, man, I really appreciate you coming over. Thank you so much. StevenShea.com.
Yep.
You know, follow. I hope everybody follows you because your stuff's awesome. Even your photography is really good. Like you said, you're posting stuff every day. I appreciate you coming over.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
It's awesome. I'm like, and I hope I get to be in another movie.
I'm never talking to you again.
And we all going out to the death of these ends.
So many chase the dream just to chase the dollar. I'm trying to get this money to erase the drama and escape the problems. Get my bank account nice with a few more commas. You know, a few zeros that'll take your mama out of living so tough, and what I'm giving isn't enough.